happening now. We want to welcome our viewers from across the United States and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room. Good morning, good day, good evening. This is EdTech Situation Room episode number 343. Wow, that's a very large number on January 1st, 2025, the first day of 2025. We are now halfway to 2050 in the 21st century, which is pretty wild stuff. But my name is Jason Neiffer. I'm the executive director of the Montana Digital Academy, which is the state virtual school located on the beautiful University of Montana campus, not in Great Falls, Montana, where I'm at tonight, hanging out with my parents. And join me tonight, as always, Happy New Year, Dr. Wes Fryer. How are you tonight this evening, sir?
Happy New Year, Jason. And you look like a new man with your trimmed beard, your haircut, and your hat. We did have 2 live viewers, and they just dropped off. But who knows? Yeah, it is 2025. Can you believe that? I'll tell you what seems crazy is our youngest is about to go back to school, and she will be halfway through with college after this semester, and that blows my mind. But yeah, I understand you got to go to some warmer climates for part of the holidays. So
yeah, not as warm as we had hoped, but still pretty good. We spent 6 days in San Diego, kind of a much needed a holiday. It was mostly about eating and smelling ocean, so we did a lot of both. But it was wonderful down there, and it's so funny because growing up in Montana, I just always had this thing about California, like not a good thing, a bad thing, like, oh no, California. And then I actually went there in 2005 for the first time. In fact, it was when I first attended what was then known as NECC, but ISTE in San Diego. And it was a huge week for me in a variety of reasons. It was my first wedding anniversary, and it was the first time going to ISTE. But I picked up so much in that 4 days that really changed the trajectory of my career for sure. And certainly I would have ended up where I'm at now, without that. But that was in San Diego, and I've fallen in love with California. I'm not sure if I really want to live there, but my wife and I do enjoy Central and Southern California quite a bit. So yeah, it was really great to be able to spend that time there. And if social media is to be believed, Dr. Fryer, you had wonderful time with family over the last 2 weeks.
we have. It's been a real blessing. So we're at the stage of life where any time with parents is a real blessing. So my dad is our remaining parent, and he's actually gotten to spend 3 weeks with us. So he's just got a couple more days. So our nest will be again empty as of Friday, except for the fur baby dogs that we have, and it was really good. So we got, I don't know if you are familiar with the Biltmore, but it is the largest privately owned home in the United States, and it's the home of George Vanderbilt, and it is really something. So we were able to spend a night there in Asheville, and we had not been to the mountains actually since the summer before Hurricane Helene, because we went camping in June, and as I've been doing a reasonable job catching up on our past episodes, which will hopefully, before I return to school on January 6th, be all caught up. It's interesting, sometimes we'll talk about the weather and stuff like that, and we just got this rain, and anticipating this Hurricane Helene that just made landfall in Florida. And then anyway, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience to be there in Asheville. They're very eager to have tourist dollars because they've only been open. Some places like the Biltmore for 2 months, but some only for a month. And we did drive down. I do have a video, and I'm gonna share that we recorded as we left at dusk of what's called the River Arts area, and they had a flood that was over 50 feet high, and it just completely, we're talking Noah's Ark level biblical flood, right? That just absolutely wiped out this entire part of the community. So anyway, it was good. It was there's a lot of folks in Western North Carolina still struggling, and anyway, it was but holiday time. Appreciate being off as a classroom teacher. Excited for the second semester, and I'm excited to have two coding sections. So going to teach more computer apps, media literacy, and web design, but a lot of coding, and looking forward to that.
What languages are you teaching your coding classes?
Well, this is the middle school introductory coding class. So I have traditionally focused with Scratch and Microsoft Make Code and kept
Awesome.
things mostly block based. But with Make Code, students have the option, if they want, to flip over to JavaScript or Python. And I've got some kids that do that. Um, so I'll probably stick with a similar format, but have been doing some planning and thinking about things that will change this semester, and just really excited. So, what are we going to do tonight for the next 55 minutes, Dr. Neiffer?
Well, Dr. Fryer, I think we're going to talk about some news, and my guess is that a lot of it is probably going to be AI related, since that seems to be the topic of the day. But if you are interested in any link we talk about, or even the ones we don't, you can go to our website at edtechsr.com/links and find all the information there. But tonight, looking at the links that Dr. Fryer put together for our discussion tonight, it includes some AI news, and then there's a bunch of stuff from December we didn't get to, that I think is worthy of some mentioning, for sure. In addition, we will do some of our standard categories. Which includes things like media literacy and digital storytelling, social media. Google has a lot of interesting things going on too, that we'll be happy to go through, and then we'll end tonight with our geeks of the week. Dr. Fryer, since you graciously collected some wonderful news links, where would you like to start tonight?
Well, I want to make a comment first about, well, this is AI related actually, and our show. So I don't know how many months ago, we started a Substack. Substack is a free platform as a newsletter. I read Substack every week, sometimes every day, but it has become one of my news readers and a place where I just get, a lot of updated information. And so one of the things that we have been doing, and this is the post production for podcasts, can be burdensome and take a while. I have been in the habit of creating not only a MP3 audio version, but also a smaller compressed version. StreamYard will basically create a 1 to 1.5 gigabyte file that is a recording of this hour. And then I would, throw that into a free open source program called Handbrake, and then create about 100 to 120 meg file. Well, YouTube has pretty good compression, and so it compresses to about 500 to 700. Anyway, I've been using Substack and gone ahead and started to publish the high definition YouTube compressed version of the video. And the thing that is fantastic, and I did actually write a blog post on my personal blog about this a couple of weeks ago, is that Substack uses AI to identify the what it, I guess, predicts would be potentially viral clips. And so I don't think you're aware of this, Dr. Neiffer, but on December 28th, a few days ago, I basically published a couple clips. It does like 6 or 7, I think, automatically. And so I published this one that I titled Sam Altman's Vision of AI Superintelligence, Jason Neiffer on the EdTech Situation Room. And that has racked up 609 views, which, for big time YouTubers, that's nothing. But, these other ones are like 8 views, 4 views. So 609 is, there's a lot of folks searching for Sam Altman. But I think that
Oh, I thought it was a
is,
lot of folks searching for Jason Neiffer. Excuse me.
well, it just might be. We need to include that critical keyword. But it's, we mentioned this months and months ago on the show, when we recognized that on Facebook as well as YouTube, everything we say is being transcribed, and therefore, potentially somebody could search for these things and find these things, and it's both exciting and a little bit sobering to think about, hey, whatever rant or commentary that we're going to add about these articles could become part of a digital record that it's going to be out there. And so anyway, I think the value of clips or reels and these short little snippets, my wife watches these a lot. A lot of people do, actually. And in fact, going back in links, I think it was in September, maybe on the 18th, you had mentioned, I think, the Oprah Winfrey AI special, and I didn't at the time watch that, and I've since watched it. And Tristan Harris and his conspirator whose name is going to evade me, of the Center for Humane Technology, Ezra Raskin, is that his name? They talk about infinite scroll and inventing that. Anyway, and just the billions of human hours that are, you could say wasted. You could just say, utilized by the infinite scroll and by Reels. So anyway, we can comment on whether or not that's the end of literate society and communication as we know it, to have people doom scrolling through Reels. I think that it can be very valuable in an attention economy. And so anyway, that is a long way of saying I think Substack is an excellent platform. I'm glad that we're on it. The post-production is speeding up a little bit in skipping that, handbrake compression and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty cool to be able to have those clips. So I just put that into the show notes or the links here in our chat, and we'll put that into show notes and encourage people to check that out. And so, I'm not necessarily going to publish 7 clips per show, but I think I'll probably end up grabbing a couple, and that may be some ways that people learn about the show and are able to, get some of the key ideas. So are you a consumer of Reels, or do others in your family and your circle, either at home or at work, succumb to Reels and short form video, or are Montanans immune from such distractions?
It's funny you should mention that, because it's something that I actually think quite a bit about in regards to content acquisition. And one of the things that I decided to do in December was to delete TikTok off my phone. And I decided that, and it was after a lot of thinking about, my mental health and the distractions that I deal with in the way my brain works, that it was just too much of an endorphin rush. And so it wasn't healthy for me, is what it came down to. And it's funny, because I've been talking a lot about that, and now that short form video is everywhere. Instagram, it's even on LinkedIn now, which I think is actually both kind of bizarre, and I'm not entirely sure if that's a welcome intrusion into what I've, over the last 2 years, have a very pleasant experience on LinkedIn, actually. But it's interesting to me that there is a focus now on that short form video piece. But I do think that it's a really important content acquisition strategy, and it's also a very important creator strategy, right? And we may get into this tonight, but the Honey Chrome extension scandal that has been a big thing in the last couple of weeks. One of the things that has highlighted is how tough it is in 2025, I guess, is where we're at right now in regards to the year, how hard it is for independent creators to continue to make a viable run at being a content creator. And I do think there is some due cynicism to the creation world itself, right? Like I think a lot of people underestimate how tough of a gig that is. But one of the things that has been really part of that discussion is how hard it is to profit and to get your word out, have enough money to continue to create. And the short form video piece is is slowly being invaded by people that are doing affiliate links. If you go to TikTok, everything is about the TikTok shop now. Every second or third post on TikTok is about something, people trying to profit off of the TikTok shop and get the revenue share there. And I mean, the bottom line is that the creator economy, seems like it's a low barrier to entry, and in some ways it is certainly different than the traditional media environment. But just because it's easy to break into it doesn't mean you're going to profit off of it to be able to live on being a content creator. And I guess Wes and I are both content creators, for sure, right? And for the record, we get $0 for doing this. In fact, Dr. Fryer graciously pays for all of our hosting, which means that he goes in the hole for this podcast. But we don't do it for the money. But I could see a scenario where if when we retire, for example, that we may want to get an income stream based on the work we do in something like this, and you have to hustle pretty hard to make that happen. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of a long,
No,
like
no,
answer.
no. That's
It's
that's
weird and
awesome.
rambles, but yeah,
Hey, we don't have as many links today, so we may go off on some rabbit holes. So I want to talk about that, and then also just talk about short form, video creation too. I think that's exceptionally interesting about TikTok and deleting it. Off your phone. Our youngest daughter, who is at the Air Force Academy, did a prep school year, and one of her instructors, who was actually a Air Force Chief Master Sergeant, I felt like this was a bit of an overstep, but he basically convinced all of these prep students, they were not in ROTC or in the military yet, that really they had to delete that app. It was owned by China. It was controlled by them. They were going to be military members. They needed to delete TikTok. I kind of think she might have subsequently reactivated an account. It's going to be interesting, by the way, in the next couple weeks to see what happens with TikTok, because unless President Biden extends the deadline, before President Trump assumes office, TikTok is supposed to either sell to a U.S. owned entity or cease being in the app stores of Apple and Google for Android. And so that doesn't mean, our TikTok accounts, if you've deleted it, Dr. Neiffer may not ever be able to get it back. But if you still have it on your phone, it's not going to be sort of sucked off by the app stores. And we don't have an article about that. But I find that fascinating, and it's an important literacy conversation to have about that short-term video. I did find a Snopes article, and this was from December 30th. The headline is "Video Accuses Honey Browser Extension of Shady Business Practices," and we found some truth to it. Now, unlike most Snopes articles, which are going to say, is this true, is this false? This is under the category of news. And I'll just read the first couple paragraphs here. Honey is a popular extension for web browsers that claims to scour the web for coupon codes, helping people get best deals, has a point system. It's one of the things when I was a tech director and I would go help some of our faculty, I would cringe when I would see it, because I was like, why are you putting this possible bloatware, certainly spyware? I don't think you're really... I guess it psychologically fed people's desire to get stuff, to, oh, look, I'm getting points and I could use a coupon. But I never used it. And I didn't tell people that I had to delete it, but I was like, I don't think this is good. And so 2018, it says, people wrote to Snopes asking whether the service was legitimate. Snopes had investigated this and concluded it was legit. It did provide consumers with some discounts and rebates. And then in 2019, PayPal purchased Honey for $4 billion. So, and I missed this. So this is an article I appreciate you mentioning. In late December, a wildly popular YouTube video by Mr. Beast, who has been the most popular influencer and YouTube creator financially, and I think he still is, uploaded a video called "Exposing the Honey Influencer Scam," and he reported what it characterized as shady business practices underlying the operation of the browser extension, labeled it a scam. And then following the release, Snopes readers contacted us, asked for an extension. And so I guess the bottom line to this article is that, it found some truth to what Mr. Beast had said. And so I think that's fascinating, and I appreciate you bringing that up. What are your opinions at this point about the Honey extension?
Yeah, I read a couple of the articles that were that came off of the YouTube videos exposing it, and I guess I'm not surprised. There was a really great Hank Green video last week that, in fact, I watched earlier today, that talked about the huge mess that is affiliate linking, right? And and this has been an issue for 20 years actually. Affiliate link has been around for quite some time, and one of the things that I find um, challenging about social media is that a lot of people in the education influencer space, are pushing affiliate links, or sending, and create brand deals with various folks, and sometimes they disclose them and sometimes they don't. I don't really care to mention particular creators that I think are a little skeezy there, but there are some that are, I think, are popular in the education space that, in my mind, are really no more better than a scam blog that is just all affiliate links, right? But it's really what makes the creator economy run, because it's advertising. And it's funny because that's why Lifehacker created an economics, or not an economics, but a blog, or not blog, but a website, focusing on daily deals. It's the reason why when you watch CBS this morning, the last 10 minutes of the second hour is all CBS deals, and it's gross. It really is quite terrible, and that's because the economy around getting people to click links to go to commerce websites to buy things is huge. That's how a lot of that runs. And I have an affiliate account. Sometimes I'll post a link. I try to make sure that I let people know it's an affiliate link. When I do, if I have a relative that is asking me for a recommendation, for technology, for example, I'll send them an Amazon link that's got an affiliate code on it. Um, and um, uh, and let them know that I'll get a cut of that, if they decide to purchase based on that link. But what Honey was doing was stripping out the affiliate link, from creators and inserting their own link in, which, my understanding, is not necessarily a violation of a lot of the affiliate link programs, which I think just tells you how problematic this is from the standpoint um, of a way to finance your media operation. And yeah, I know I Honey seems sketchy to me. There is a lot of other videos about how much they pushed money into well-known creators, on YouTube, and advertised with them. And um, Hank Green's video talks about how sketchy he thought it was when he saw that Honey was advertising on these big YouTube channels, because he said, I just don't understand, if it's all about giving codes for discounts, how are you making enough money to then advertise on all these YouTube channels? And it's because they were still in the affiliate link from the creator that referred, or that oftentimes referred as part of those processes. So it's a big, gross story, but I think it's an important part of understanding why the creator economy is just so challenging, and why perhaps it's just not as clear cut as people want it to be.
So there's the link I'll just drop into Hank Green's video that he just posted on Christmas Eve on December 24th. And it's called The Honey Scam and the Ridiculous Mess of Affiliate Marketing. And I will say, and I think this is in part due to you, Jason, I have been paying more attention, in part because of his shorts, to Hank Green and his channel.
Yeah, great.
He's a great creator to study in terms of editing. I found that my favorite, Descript.com, which I'm paying for as an AI tool, does some of that editing and deletes filler content, but he really does and I don't know whether he does, his team does a great job of that. So this is also just another sign of the times, right? I mean, typically our links are articles, but many times we're getting our content from videos. We're getting them from, podcasts and things like that. And so I think that Chrome extensions are a really important media and digital literacy topic. I think it was after the New Zealand mass shooting that a group created a Chrome extension that would make sure you didn't see on any web page the name of the shooter. And unfortunately, as I say this on January 1st, we've had a mass shooting and casualty event that's happened in New Orleans in the United States. And one of the things that you'll hear people talk about those events is why it's important for journalists and the media to try to not over amplify the name of the shooter, because that can be part of the reason why shooters want to be famous and have their name everywhere. But anyway, it's just very interesting to me that Chrome extensions can have a lot of power over what you see on the web and what you perceive as reality. So I don't have a media literacy lesson at this point that is really just dedicated to Chrome extensions. I do always try to share with my students the uBlock origin extension. And we'll see sometimes students watching a YouTube video and then, oh my gosh, you're watching this ad. And So it's important conversations.
Yeah.
So
Well, and as those uh as as those tools have become less functional in the new browser era, and we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast. I'm thinking about setting up what is referred to as a Pi-hole server in my home, which is a third-party application that you can download that essentially, for lack of a better way of putting it, also blocks ads. It does it in a much more dramatic way, but and we've also talked about in the coverage of the blocking of these plugins is that I have a real mixed bag about that, right? Like the bottom line is that I believe that ads, or that there has to be, if you're not paying for it, there has to be a way to pay for the services that you're utilizing from the internet. But advertising just becomes so ridiculous now that my local newspaper, which is something that I have an on again, off again subscription to, depending on the way the wind's blowing. But if I'm logged in and or not logged in and go to the front page, I mean, it looks like 1,000 billboards are stacked on top of the page, and clicking out of all this stuff takes now like 45 seconds to get to the front page of the news with all the ads that are there. It tells me the advertising's not that all that effective at funding these pursuits anymore. But I don't know the answer to that. We talked about a couple of times over the years how I am a believer in micropayments, that I would be willing to pay 10-15 cents to get access to an article, on demand, to have a mechanism to do that. Maybe my startup is finally to create a process like that. But I think I have $25 or $30 in Patreon subscriptions now, because there are some creators that I use often enough that I feel like that I'm obligated to do that, like in a good way, not a bad way, but a good way, obligated to do that. But the economy of the internet is still, I think, quite bizarre.
yeah, and we certainly, I think, need to continue to innovate, iterate, explore, and seek to improve the ecosystems that
Yeah.
we live in and we utilize. And I think that micropayments and credentials, and that tied to another geek of the week that I have about Patreon. Let's go with a great news article, because a lot of times we're doing negative stuff, and so I think this is a pretty good one. And then we'll get back to more of our normal, like AI do my stuff. No, this is from the Wider Image, which is an app that I've actually had on my iPhone. It's from Reuters, and it's interesting to me how sometimes the link that will be shared on social media and that your browser extension and whatever will pick up is a little bit different. The link that was shared on I think it was Blue Sky, is some of the best Reuters photos of 2024 and the stories behind them. And then when you actually look at the page, it says 2024, the stories behind the photos. But I think that, visual storytelling and being able to communicate well with images, and then also a filtered article like this, right? There's all kinds of, end of the year, sorts of things. But I think this is one that I don't know. The first article, or the first picture is after Donald Trump was the attempted assassination on him. These are hard and difficult. So these may not be things to share with students, but talking about tropical storms. The second one is a view outside Boone, North Carolina, on September 27th when Hurricane Helene hit. There's some really compelling, powerful images. So I would just caution everyone, review these, consider whether or not you want to delve into these topics. Certainly there's things involving border security, immigration, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza. There's an aircraft fire. But I think from a media literacy standpoint, the power of images, and of course now with deep fakes and the opportunity that we have increasingly to utilize, and bad actors can utilize software tools that can create fictitious images. The importance of vetting, all of that is super important. And so yeah, it's definitely worth checking out and taking a look at, again, with a caution that, it's the it's not only political content, but it's also, pretty natural disasters, assassination attempts, things like that. So
Yeah.
that may not be something to share with students, but maybe if you have another example that is compelling, and it maybe that comes from a student news, uh, the News Literacy Project, or something like that. Maybe there's another one that's going to be more student friendly. But wow, the power of images, and also just the thought that we rely so much on believing what we see,
Yeah.
and visually on the web. As I teach my students, I do not think, and I don't anymore, I never share a blog post that doesn't have an image with it. I have a theme now for my main blog that has a featured image, but it's just so important in terms of helping visually summarize what the topic and theme of that content is. And just like many of us will read the subject line of an email and decide whether or not we need to click and actually read that, or we can just go ahead and delete or archive or whatever, I think images are the same way. So, any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I mean, it AI literacy is obviously a huge topic right now, but I think a lot of people assume that that means bringing AI into your classroom, and I don't think it does. You can adopt the wonderful tenets of basic media literacy instruction that has not really been a mystery for the last 20 years for sure, right? And do some pretty amazing things, I think, to talk about how things work, and how you may be able to create uh, uh, interesting ways to look at the news. But I mean, there are dozens of that end of the year pieces that show dramatic media that I think you could turn into let's talk about this photo more, right? And it's not even necessarily about the passing of time, although I think that's an interesting topic of the history teacher sort of thing. The bottom line is that if you're not thinking about using real photographs as a means to start building student tolerance around AI media pieces, then I really think you're missing a truly wonderful opportunity to engage your students. And yeah, I did see a couple of different versions of that, and the photos were amazing. Whether you agreed with the content behind them or not, it was a great year for photojournalism, and that's in an era where you can cook up an image on your own. It's pretty dramatic, and I think we need to laud the great photojournalism that happens, right? Like that has to be a part of kind of how we're going about the process. But yeah, I saw a couple articles like that, and I did spend a lot of time kind of staring into the photographs.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's this is like the least number of AI articles we've had in like years. So, but we could easily go back to some of our articles we haven't talked about. And for those of you that don't know, as we talk about articles, we bold them in our show notes, which again you can find on edtechsr.com/links. And so we've got a lot of AI articles that we did not talk about, but this one was pretty notable. This is TechCrunch on December 20th, and the state of Arizona is about to get a different style online school. It is going to be an AI school. And so, according to the article, it has been, quote, green-lighted by the Arizona Board for Charter Schools, and the curriculum is going to be taught entirely by AI, and not necessarily, there will be humans in the loop. They'll be, quote, skilled guides, but they won't necessarily be accredited teachers. And they're going to use Khan Academy. They're going to use IXL, these kinds of EdTech platforms. And wow, it sounds like, and again, this is something that's green lighted and is coming. It is not in operation today, but the plan is to whittle down academic instruction to just 2 hours a day. And then the remainder of students' time is going to be life skills workshops involving areas like critical thinking, creative problem solving, financial literacy, public speaking, goal setting, and entrepreneurship. It's going to target 4th through 8th graders. I think it's just super, super important. So I don't know if you're continuing, but I was a subscriber to Conmigo for a number of months by Khan Academy. And I'm still very interested in the work of Sal Khan and the ways in which AI can be leveraged as a tutor. I watched, as I mentioned, that September Oprah Winfrey special on AI, and Bill Gates is there talking about a lot of things, but mentioning, education, the power of tutoring. And I think that the influence of Sal Khan and, of course, his close relationship and funding and support of Khan Academy figures high in his ideas and conceptions of education. But just wondering if you saw that and the thoughts that you have about the role that AI can play as, I guess, a curriculum delivery, a primary delivery mechanism for students in an online
Yeah.
learning environment.
Well, and I'll admit I shuddered when I read this news coverage a couple of weeks ago, in part because I think this is exactly the kind of like BS press release kind of stuff that makes it difficult for us to really engage in these tools. Because when there's a lot of subtext there, right? And obviously. Um, I don't know any of the people involved in this. This is kind of my space, from the standpoint of I do know, a lot of people in the alternative education space, as a distance learning leader myself. None of this is really, like new to me from the standpoint of the ability uh, uh, to look at such a radical shift in the instructional model. But I think this stuff does a lot of disservice to all of us, really, from the standpoint of it. It is such a I don't know if departure is even the right word, but it. it yeah, I like the focusing on critical thinking. I like the focus on public speaking. I hope they throw some debate in there. I'd like to focus on that as well. But people are going to get past the 2 hours of, AI teaching, right? And I don't even know what that means, right? Like, I think Conmigo's got a ton of potential. I think they're spending a lot of money to make it into a legitimate piece. I think tutoring, I agree with Con that, and I did get a chance to read his book, about AI tutoring. It's really good. It's inspired conversations, about AI as a personalization tool in the state of Montana, and we're likely to go in the direction of putting a lot of time and effort to see what this can do. But people don't want to hear about an AI tutor for 2 hours a day and then not school. And the part for that that's really, I think, silly is that, critical thinking is a really important part of education, right? There's nothing new there. There's nothing innovative there. And so, yeah, I think these kinds of conversations are distractions. I'm sure there are people that, will want their kids to experience this because of the perception that AI is the future. But I think things like this end up distracting us from the real conversations about how do we engage these technologies in a way that we know are going to help students learn.
Hey, welcome to Daniel Carney, who is tuning in live and has commented in the chat that there's a big difference between leveraging AI in education and shirking our
Yep.
responsibility as educators because the EdTech tool du jour, in this case, AI streamlines things. I mean, look, Khan Academy and IXL, those are tools that my teachers, as I was tech director, and my wife teaching elementary, like, use these tools extensively.
Mhm.
I think one of the things we need to avoid is sort of AI absolutism,
Yeah.
right? Because we do have people today like refusing to have anything to do with generative AI images, and really, forming some very Luddite flavored views
But I feel
about about how AI tools are evil. AI and machine learning algorithms have infused all kinds of aspects of our society and our lives. And so, yeah, I think you are on target talking about the distraction that certainly is clickbait for educators and those of us interested in education. It is very important to watch and be wary of things going on with charter schools. I could go on at length about things that have happened in Oklahoma and lawsuits and all kinds of things that, in fact, we're in Florida. And then, moved to the state and then were forced to close and shutter, and just all kinds of things that are happening. And there's great examples of charter schools. There's all sorts of diversity in education, but I think that we need to embrace the potential of AI for its constructive possibilities. And if we would have a completely Luddite flavored approach, but either individually or as institutions towards artificial intelligence, then I think we are doing a disservice to our students and to the future, because it is much like, insisting on, oral spoken language education instead of using tablets and papyrus and writing things down when that became possible. So let's go to, we've got about 20 minutes. Let's talk about South Korea, and let's talk about YouTube and just wild things that are happening. I'm going to first link to a Blue Sky link, and I've got another article that I want to share about Blue Sky, because I started, Jason, not only putting our Mastodon accounts, which I'm not sure exactly how much you're using Mastodon these days. I'm continuing to use it quite a bit. Yeah, but Blue Sky is absolutely exploding, and I am so happy to be reconnecting with so many different educators and being able to create lists. And there's a variety of reasons for this, but this is a post from Tobias Harris that was shared on December 31st, and he said these are some incredible sentences, and it's from this Reuters article, and I'm just going to read this quote. Well, I guess I should say in summary, there was a attempted declaration of martial law in South Korea, and then there were all these protests, and then the legislature acted to basically cancel or veto the declaration of martial law by the president of South Korea. And why are we talking about this on this show? Well, we talk about, technology and its impact on society, and as well as schools and classrooms. And so the quotation that Tobias Harris shared was, a columnist, this is from the article, a columnist for the conservative-leaning Junag Ilbo newspaper on Friday said Yoon's YouTube addiction, this is the president of South Korea, had, quote, ruined his regime. If you are addicted to YouTube, you fall into a world of delusion dominated by conspiracy theories. President Yoon watched too much YouTube, the column explained. And so the article, goes into some detail about how, turning to, just how many folks, turn to social media today instead of mainstream media sources, especially, younger people, but not just younger people. And the South Korean president counted himself and has counted himself among those that have really focused on social media and what folks were saying on social media. And so he has a TV channel on YouTube with 1.1 million subscribers called Kosongkuk. He evidently, kind of fell down a rabbit hole and ended up repeating a lot of crazy things that conspiracy theorists and others, had claimed. And I just found that incredibly fascinating. I am not an expert on South Korean politics or culture. I have seen these articles, as well as, of course, some other headlines since an election happened in our country in November. And so I haven't spent a ton of time, but this really, really caught my attention. So any thoughts on this? Perhaps as a former debater, Jason, you were very familiar with, nuclear scenarios on the Korean Peninsula, and can shed some good light on the politics of the Korean Peninsula for us.
Yeah, well, and in fact, I mean, I think that the larger East Asia is by far the greatest chance I think we have of a serious global conflict, because there are, a lot of people in a lot of different countries with a lot of different ideologies that are relatively close to one another. And although the United States has a lot of influence there, the bottom line is we are not the influence leader in the region. And it has been interesting to watch what's been happening in South Korea. But the part that that's most applicable to our show, but also I think applicable to 2025, is that it's just a different game now when it comes to news. And I agree with the bemoaning of the loss of our traditional media. but the bottom line for me is that there are other ways now for information to get out that are not mainstream news sources, and I think that that's both a blessing and a curse. But it's been very interesting to watch what's going on there, and it's also meant that South Korea was on my travel bucket list, and maybe actually a relatively soon trip. That's going to go down the list just a little bit as there's unrest there. It was very close to home to me, the attack, which I think we can safely call a terrorist attack in
It's just going to be the every show.
yeah.
Does Wes need to invest in some better Velcro and tech? Yeah, he does. Sorry. You just have to have this little. Teachers just aren't paid what they need to be, folks.
Yeah. The place where the attack occurred, I was there 15 years ago last night. So
oh my gosh,
yeah. So like that hit a little close to home to me, and not a politics podcast, but it's a dangerous world we live in, but certainly I think the availability of human citizen journalism and media really is a heck of a thing. And I'd also say too something that is kind of related to the South Korea piece in regards to the New Orleans pieces that we talked about earlier is that I'd be very careful about any news right now out of New Orleans, out of South Korea.
Oh, yeah.
The Las Vegas explosion, which they don't really know what that is yet, the one in front of the Trump Tower in Las Vegas. Don't believe what you read unless you're getting it from a news source that is a legitimate news source, right? In part because it's so easy now to create media that is bizarre link to the kind of bigger process, right? But we have to be very, very thoughtful now about media acquisition for sure.
100%. Well, let's talk a little bit about Blue Sky. That actually connects to an information literacy article too, and I want to get to this Google article too, which is pretty good. Blue Sky. This is Education Week on December 17th. Is Blue Sky the new Twitter for teachers? We have talked about on the show multiple times how we have lamented the state of affairs that's happened with Twitter. And I think, I was listening to one of our previous shows, Jason, where you were like, let's just have the EdTech community take a vote. And if the vote's to go back to Twitter, then let's all go back to Twitter. I actually am back on Twitter. I have still not written a blog post about this, but the ways that our political culture has changed and is going to continue to change. I just feel like it's really important for me as a media literacy educator as well as citizen to be abreast, to be in the know, not only about what is happening on Twitter, but also what's happening on Truth Social. And I will say that I'm not posting everything that I'm sharing on other platforms, there on Truth Social. But oh my gosh, I got to write about this. It is very, very eye-opening to see what is shared and the headlines, the images, and all that. So anyway, on a positive note, Education Week is saying that there has been an explosion on Blue Sky, especially since the election in November, and they are just having millions and millions of signups. They do have a link to Alice Keeler's Google sheet that she maintains, which is tinyurl.com/edusky. Use the hashtag edusky when you post on Blue Sky. One of my Geeks of the Week is going to be a free webinar that's coming up on Monday the 6th that's going to focus all on educational networking with Blue Sky. And so the user base, I guess, is up to 20 million. It's grown exponentially, according to the article. But there's just some really good features there. And I've just been energized, not only by the folks I've seen that are on there, but also the interaction. And, Daniel's here tonight because he found us on Blue Sky and saw that link tonight. And here he is live. And I am thrilled to be able to have similar kinds of interactive conversations with other educators like I did for decade, over a decade on Twitter. So, any thoughts about that, Jason?
Well, yeah, I mean, I am very excited that that there's a place again to go that where the conversation's relatively positive, and it's interesting. I haven't deleted Twitter off my phone. I don't go to it all that often. I refuse to call it X because it's a dumb name. But the bottom line is that if I just have 10 minutes and I want to, engage my brain, but not get involved in the mire of politics, Blue Sky's now the place I go for that, and that's something I haven't experienced really since probably even before the pandemic, because Twitter was starting to get kind of ugly too, but before the most recent drama. But I have seen a number of prominent voices on Blue Sky say things like, the sale of Twitter to someone else didn't cause people to leave Twitter. There were people leaving Twitter well before that, and it's because it became too much about self promotion. It became too much about sharing affiliate links that you weren't sending out. I mean, and that's I not 100% true, because nothing is as nothing is as uncomplicated as a tweet might ever suggest. But the bottom line is that we do have to be really thoughtful about building community there, right?
Yeah.
And I think Wes, I think sharing information about how to build a personal learning network via a tool like this, and who to follow, and encouraging people to not follow people, or to unfollow people that aren't speaking your language, or aren't the vibe that you're looking for, or aren't in agreement with maybe closely held beliefs. If that's causing you, I like reading stuff that I don't agree with, in part because it helps me figure out what I do believe, right, or defend my beliefs. But the bottom line is that not everyone is into that. So don't pretend that you are if you're not. Take control, be an active participant, not just in sharing all over the platform, but tweaking it to make it useful for you. So I'm thrilled, and it kind of feels like that's what happened. Is we took an unofficial referendum and ended up with Blue Sky. The app is great. It seems like there's a good trust and safety team. There are issues because there have been some people that have violated the unwritten community norms of Blue Sky, and we're discussing what to do about that, and what the company's going to be involved, and do they have the means of of the trust and safety piece that was eliminated by Mr. Musk over at Twitter. um I will just say this: that it is interesting watching what's happening at Twitter right now, because Mr. Musk has become aggressively criticized in the last week or so over the immigration issue, and that the tenor of that platform has gone very aggressive in the last 7 days. And I, as Mr. Musk is self-proclaimed free speech absolutist. I'm not sure free speech absolutism is really a tenable place for most people. I just think that the bottom line is that just because you think it, and you think to type it on your phone, doesn't mean everyone else should have to read it. Is kind of
Yeah.
where I'm at on those pieces. But
Freedom of speech does not mean freedom of reach, as Renee DiResta in her wonderful book Invisible Rulers talks about. That's one of her best quotes there.
yeah.
So
Well, and in the same way too that we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but I um, encouraged a bunch of people to join our local newspaper, to pay for our local newspaper. In exchange for that we would pressure the newspaper to turn off comments because it wasn't productive. And a lot of people, want to make a free speech argument about that. And it's like, well, no, you've never had more access to speech than since the internet. I should say since Web 2.0 became a thing, because if you would like to create a world accessible blog, you can do it in about 6 clicks, 30 seconds to a blog, even still in 2025. But just because you have the right to doesn't mean that it should have the reach to make it into my eyeballs without me seeking that.
that's right. That's right. Uh, Two thoughts. I think that maybe we should do a segment on influencers, at least as far as sharing maybe some of our top influencers that we
Yep.
follow. I think that would be a fruitful segment that we could do. Um, got another comment here from Daniel. The promoting of accounts to the point where I had a hard time seeing the accounts I actually follow was becoming a real issue on Twitter before I bailed on it. I hope Blue Sky avoids this. And I would comment that lists are really, really important and super, super powerful. And one of the ways that I encourage all of us to use Blue Sky, and there's no advertising right now on Blue Sky. I mean, what a
Yeah.
huge, huge thing that is. And I don't know that that is sustainable. But my other thought is, I'm going to write a post. I didn't write it today, and I won't before I go to bed. But it's going to be like something to the effect of convictions and suspicions. Like, these are the things I know. These are the things I suspect. I know that we need to build community. I suspect that we're in for some real difficult political times in the months ahead. Being able to connect with other educators, being able to have support, in a lot of different ways is really important. And so I think that doing this with Blue Sky, but we also don't want to, I think, put all of our eggs in that basket. I want to talk about one more article, and then I think we'll have to do some Geeks of the Week. This is a gift link from the New York Times, which tends to be really long, so I put this into my URL shortener, and you can go to wfryer.me/Google Conceal. But this article, which I think I did find on Blue Sky, was shared on November 21st. And it said, if you listen to it, which I did, is for about 15 minutes long, how Google spent 15 years creating a culture of concealment. And we have talked quite a bit about antitrust. We've talked about big tech. Jason's coined the term the tech correction in terms of what may happen. And we have seen, we're seeing it right now with the TikTok law that has been passed that may be apparently going to be enforced here in January. We've talked about Google changing, and Jason and I are both really big Apple fanboys and Google fans and Chromebook. We may not talk about it tonight, Jason, but there's an article I dropped in there that's really pro Chromebook and just an excellent piece for those of us who are the tech help in our family or in our community or church or whatever. I love being able to help connect people with Chrome. There's a lot of reasons for that. But this article details with a lot of things that have come out in court cases about how Google attempted to create, it didn't attempt, it made the default setting for its chat apps no history. And the law in the United States, if either litigation and lawsuits are ongoing or are anticipated, the law requires that documentation be kept. And so this is a very damning article for Google, talking about how it's not just a one-off. This isn't just one person or a certain group, but this is culture-wide. Google really wanted to conceal a lot of its activities because of fear about antitrust and accusations of monopoly and these kind of things. And so we won't talk about it tonight in depth, but we do have this Department of Justice ruling about Google being a monopoly. And I think in our last episode, we talked about how they've been ordered to sell Chrome, which is like, well, who's going to be making money with that? It's a giveaway. But anyway, I thought this was an excellent article, and it doesn't make me want to abandon Google. But I do think it's super important for us to have our eyes open, both as individual citizens and as teachers, in terms of what are we giving up when we use these tools? What's the quid pro quo? And then, the landscape. The landscape is very dynamic. I'm personally concerned that Chrome as a browser is so dominant and that there's not a robust ecosystem of competition there, and that has a lot of impacts. So any comments there, Jason?
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. I read this very article and then a couple others that talked about that. But I mean, I think this is what comes of a highly legal regulatory environment that is not that's more legally based than it is regulation based, right? Like
Mhm.
if we had been on, I think there's something to the argument that the internet wouldn't have been as powerful or as fast evolving if we had more regulation. But then, here we are 25 years later questioning, the sale and trade of our data. So I get that, and I also understand why people are paranoid, that everything does get recorded now. And as a public employee, I know that any of my work product, including all my communications, is just a Freedom of Information Act request away. So I have to be super careful about that too, as does anyone that's working in the public sphere. But it's not going to lead to best practices for sure, right? And that's the part that I um, think is kind of sad. And Google, I'm terrified what's going to happen with the lawsuit and what they might force Google to do. I just don't think it's going to be pro consumer because it's too late at this point. If it had been 25 years ago and we had um, uh, you know better strategies to help guide these companies in the right direction, perhaps we'd be in better shape now. But I just don't know how selling Chrome benefits the consumer.
Unfortunately, we have a very ineffectual political governance ecosystem and
Yeah.
environment in the United States, and that manifests itself in multiple ways. So, okay, well, it is the top of the hour, and I think we need to geek of the week it. I'm gonna overshare, but I'll try to be quick. I did mention earlier the show clips that we now have. So there's a playlist that is on our EdTech SR YouTube channel, and you can check that out. And again, will continue to publish at least a couple of those per show. I think that's super exciting, and it'll be interesting just to kind of see how that works. And I would ask if anybody is using a favored AI tool to create video clips like this. As I said, Descript.com is one that, and I wrote on my Speed of Creativity blog about it. Let me know, because I think this is a really valuable and powerful way to take long form content like an hour long podcast and be able to grab some small snippets and then be able to share those across multiple platforms. This is a quick one. I don't know where I got this on social media. Terms of service didn't read. It says that I have read and agreed to terms is the biggest lie on the web. Together we can fix this. So put in the name of your service and it will summarize the terms of service and what indeed you are agreeing or maybe not knowing about when you click yes. I agree. I am continuing to facilitate monthly webinars that are free for the Media Education Lab. Actually, Dr. Neiffer, I understand, will be doing a presentation for the Media Education Labs conference, which will be happening like the 10th and 11th, I think. So coming up quick. But for the next 3 months, I've got those published. And on January the 6th, we'll be doing Blue Sky Educational Networking. Register free on Zoom. We're going to talk about AI chatbot ethics in February, and then participatory storytelling and the news in March. And so I'm very excited about that. I have started, Dr. Neiffer, my own Patreon, and I have thought about this for a long time, and current events have pushed me over the edge. So you can become a Patreon subscriber to Dangerous Ideas with Wes Fryer, Human Rights, Democratic Norms, Tolerance, and Media Literacy. And basically, it's giving me an opportunity to share candidly some things that I just don't want to publicly put out there. And not that I don't want to stand by these things, but we do live in an era where there's a lot of targeting that happens, unfortunately. And I think that there's some politics there. I'll just warn everybody. So there's my overshare. Are you a Chromebook fan?
Yeah, I might be, and we've talked about this one a couple of times in the past, but I have a particular recommendation. It's really weird that Chromebooks are vastly undervalued. I'm sorry, high-end Chromebooks are vastly undervalued in the secondary market. I think that low-end Chromebooks are overvalued in the secondary market, and high-end are undervalued because there's just not a lot of people looking for it. So I just wanted to share something that I picked up a couple weeks ago. This is a Chrome Enterprise 5430. It is Dell's offering. They'll sell this to education, but they really want to sell this to Fortune 500. This is a $1,400 Chromebook that I picked up for $130. It had 0 battery cycles on it. There's not a scratch on it, but a lot of resellers don't know what to do with Chromebooks, and so they're vastly undervalued. So in this particular case, it's got a 12th generation i7 chip in it, and 16 gigs of RAM, and a terabyte hard drive in it. All those things alone would make this worth it, but it's by far the fastest Chromebook I've ever used. And so I put a link in our show notes to eBay to look for your own. It's great. And if you are very careful about it, you can usually get them. If you're just patient over a couple of weeks, you figure out the one that you want, and you can usually get it for considering this is almost $1,000 new purchase. It's a couple of years old, but it gets updates for the next 10 years. It's going to be worth it. So Chromebook, the Dell Chromebook 5430 from eBay, and there's a link for you. It's not even an affiliate link. I'm not even trying to make money off you. I'm just trying to get you a cheap Chromebook. So there you go.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Well, I think
Dr. Fryer, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, I'm at Dangerous Ideas with Wes Fryer at patreon.com/Wes Fryer. But I've got everything at wesfryer.com. And I want to encourage you, Dr. Neiffer, to update. In fact, I will offer you my free services if you'd like me to update your website.
Yeah, I have to do some work there.
It's not going to take long. You can do it quick. Seriously, I'll be happy to. Just send me the credentials. I'll log in and take off the extra stuff.
Yeah, and I'm embarrassingly at aicentrist.com, and actually considering doing. I have an idea of a very simplistic website I'm put up at aicentrist that'll also point neiffer.com too as well. But it's been a while since I've had a pretty good web presence. LinkedIn is the place to find me, but. This is the EdTech Situation Room, where a once-a-week podcast, a little bumpy in 2024, just because of ongoing events that Wes and I were engaged in. But 2025 is a whole new year, so we'll see what happens. You can find us here most Wednesday nights. Not next Wednesday. We'll talk about that offline. But we're at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, sometime in the middle of the night UTC. But if you can't catch us live, although I wish you would, thanks Daniel for jumping in on our podcast tonight. Then you can just go to wherever finer podcasts are aggregated, or YouTube, and or our website edtechsr.com. Stay safe, stay savvy. We hope to see you next time on the EdTech Situation Room. Good night.
Good night, everybody.